Democrats have been, well, decidedly against the war, but also against Donald Trump, but have had to figure out how to be against a war that's taking on the regime that has killed more Americans than any other, I guess save China and COVID, in the past 50 years. With that, we bring in Congressman Adam Smith, Congressman of Washington State, also the ranking member on the Armed Services Committee. And I think that this is a good point, Congressman. How do Democrats walk this line, because Kamala Harris clearly did not, of supporting our troops, wanting America to win, and if you have questions about the tactics or the strategic value of the war, bringing them up?
Yeah, we focus on the tactics and the strategic value of the war, which I've done. We've talked about this many times. And I think the speech tonight raised some troubling questions about that in terms of what's the plan. I mean, the president says we are winning. At times he says we have won. And yet at the same time, he's threatening to bomb them back into the Stone Age, attack their oil, their desalination plants, basically to effectively try to starve the Iranian people. Why is all of that necessary if we are winning? And the other really troubling aspect of this is the president never said what this deal, what does he want out of it? And there's several different possibilities. Their nuclear program, their ballistic missile program, their support for terrorism, opening the Strait of Hormuz.
But you want him to negotiate in public?
Well, no, but we ought to have some idea, how is all of this bombing going to accomplish the objectives? And again, I'll ask, if we're winning, why do we need to make such over-the-top threats about what we're going to do next in order to apparently force the outcome that we want? If
just for the sake of argument, we were winning against Japan, right? But you had to then use a nuclear weapon in that case to bomb them into submission because they wouldn't give up.
Oh,
I think you're talking. No, we're not talking about using a nuke in Iran, but you're talking about bringing them to their knees.
No. I mean, that's exactly the point. But that is a different set of goals. President Trump said regime change was never the objective of this mission. That was the objective of Japan. I didn't have any problem understanding what we were doing in Japan. We were trying to eliminate the regime. Trump has said that's not what we're trying to do.
Well, I guess the difference would be you're either going to eliminate the regime or force the current regime to abide by your will or the will of the United. You're answering your own question by bombing him into submission, but you're complaining that he's saying he's going to do it.
Well, no, he's saying that we're winning by what we're doing right now, and yet winning.
You don't think we're winning?
Well, no, because we're not accomplishing what we want to accomplish. It was not. Let me say this.
Wait, hold on. You're saying we're not accomplishing what we want to accomplish in 32 days.
And I was going to explain that before you interrupted me.
I'll let you finish.
Yeah. So, and this is the two sets of goals that they like to throw out there. If our only goal was to degrade Iran's capability and set them back by a little bit, so they would still be a threat, just less of a threat. They would still support terrorist groups. They would still have ballistic missiles. Now, of course, they would threaten the Strait of Hormuz. If you told people at the start of this war that that was going to be the outcome, that the price of gasoline, the 13 killed service members, all of the cost of this war, not to mention, by the way, what it's doing to the rest of the world that is more dependent on stuff from the Middle East. If you told everyone that we were going to absorb all of that cost just for that relatively small bore gain, I don't think anyone would go for it. If you told them, on the other hand, we're going to stop their nuclear program, we're going to stop them from being a threat. And what we did not hear from the president tonight is any connection between that admitted on-field battlefield success and actually achieving the goals that would have made this worth it of fundamentally stopping Iran being a threat in the region. There's no path to that.
You're just admitting, though, that we're winning, though, right?
What do you mean by that?
Well, you're the one who said admitted battlefield victories, and then you said we're not winning.
Are you unfamiliar with the history and warfare of massive tactical success and strategic failure? Is this not something you've come across? Is this not part of what happened?
I understand the concept. I think we disagree with it, but I think this is
every single battle in Vietnam, and we lost the war. So that's what I'm talking about.
That's a question of political will, right? But hold on. There's a question of political will, though, for President Trump, which is he's paying a domestic political price. We can all agree that a regime change in Iran or further degrading Iran is a good idea. do you not worry that so much of this questioning, so much negativity about a war that on the battlefield we are doing well in, 32 days in, is actually just providing the Iranians with help?
Thing is, we were not doing well where it matters. Yes, we're blowing some things up, but the actual victory that would make this worthwhile of fundamentally reducing Iran, which, by the way, I do not blame our military for this at all. Okay, they are doing exactly what they are asked to do, and they're doing it very, very well. This is why I didn't support the war from the beginning, because I realized even if they do that, we were unlikely to achieve the strategic victory that would make the cost worth it. That is precisely why I didn't think this war was a good idea.
Aren't you being just as vague as President Trump is, and as you're accusing President Trump of being?
Vague how? I am saying what we need to do, what would be worth doing, is if Iran ceased to be a threat in the region. And I am saying that I did not see that the military could accomplish that objective, so I didn't think we should bear the cost of trying. How is that vague?
So you don't think our military is capable of bringing either regime change along with our Israeli allies, or bringing the Iranians to their knees to the point that they say, fine, we're going to change our ways?
I think it's highly unlikely. Now, look, it's possible, but I found it so highly unlikely that the risk and the cost of trying to do something that had such a low percentage chance of ultimate success was something we should not have done.
Last point, and I'll give you the last word. President Trump said something new to my ear, that the Iranians were trying to rebuild their nuclear program at another location and rebuild a conventional arsenal shield for that nuclear program. At that point, wouldn't you agree that military action was needed?
Oh, sure, but he's pulling that completely out of his ear. I mean, he may as well have said they had pink flamingos that were going to protect the whole thing. Look, we have been trying to get a brief from this administration ever since Operation Midnight Hammer that would tell us what they know, what they actually know about Iran's nuclear program. They have yet to provide that brief. So they have no evidence that I have seen whatsoever of that happening. If they presented it to us, of course. If in fact Iran was an imminent threat, fine. But we obliterated all of that last June. So
well, they said there's a new place. But your point's well made. Congressman, it's always good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.